Armando.
Hay algo que tienes que saber.
¿Qué es lo que tengo que saber?
The biggest international motion picture of all time.
Mi mujer, señorita López, tiene que amar a la tierra como yo la amo.
Is coming to America.
¿Qué ¿Sabes el jale en el que anda? Esto se va a poner muy feo.
Experience the action. The passion. The drama.
Que disfrutes de todos los placeres de la vida, aunque sea la destrucción de la familia.
The laughter. The music.
Hola, mi amigos, and welcome to the spill review of Casa de mi Padre.
I feel like I should start this review by saying I don't speak any Spanish.
Yeah, I don't either. That's as much as I've got, man. That's it.
For like what was his name? Speedy Gonzalez's sidekick. Hey, Speedy.
Hey, Speedy. This is a racist cartoon.
Yeah, well, anything made before a certain point isn't racist anymore, I guess.
It's acceptably racist.
It's acceptably racist. Like, the Howard Stern Show or the League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen.
Every week, yes. Yes, I'm aware of that.
I just want to give John Rubio his own show.
No, wasn't John Rubio in this movie?
I think he could have been. Certainly, this is this Casa de mi Padre, which is House of My Father, is 2012 Spanish language American comedy film with Will Ferrell in the lead. And keep in mind, this is still, we're not watching, like when we say it's a Spanish language American comedy film, that is key.
Yeah.
It is not a Spanish language Spanish film with American actors. It is very much a Will Ferrell, Adam McKay, who work together on almost everything they do these days, comedy.
Yeah.
And everything that you would expect that comes along with that, only entirely in Spanish.
Yeah, it's the story of a guy who works on his father's ranch, and his father has always preferred his brother, who has gone off to the big city, and
played by Diego Luna, the great Diego
Luna, who's great. And they basically insinuate that what his brother's been doing is getting involved with this drug cartel. So, push comes to shove, Ferrell's character gets, crosses paths with the cartel, who, the head of the cartel is played by Gael Garcia Bernal.
Who's also a great...
That's the thing. We can say whatever we want about this being, typical Ferrell or whatever, but the fact that they got Gael Garcia Bernal to be in this movie, because he read the script and really enjoyed it, not just because it was like, oh, we can pay him money and he'll do anything, like... He has really given it his all in this movie, and I really did enjoy that.
Well, I've never seen anything that he didn't. He's such a great actor.
He's great. Dot the I. I really recommend Dot the I if you haven't seen it.
And this is actually the film that, I don't know if they've been in anything together since. Maybe they have. But Diego Luna and him were both the two main characters in Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Right, yes.
Which was sort of like the launching point for both their careers in a lot of ways.
Indeed it was.
And it is good to see them together again, but even so, the few scenes that they have really together, it's like more of a Heat type of thing, like the movie Heat, where you're like, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, together in one movie. Well,
I thought you were just referring to their natural Latin heat.
No, I was not. No, don't get me started on that. That's a whole nother Dirty Dancing story for you. But them together, you're like, okay, together in the same movie again for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And the rest of the film, they're really not together at all. And
yeah.
Which I found to be one of the biggest disappointments, but maybe I had too many expectations there.
Yeah, what I did appreciate about this movie is it's not, in a lot of ways, a typical Will Ferrell comedy. It's got a little bit of the feel to it, but its gimmick alone precludes the typical Will Ferrell method, only because... he doesn't speak Spanish. Like it's not a language that he knew before this movie. He wasn't fluent in it, so he had no room to improvise. He had no room to ad-lib. All of the lines he spoke are the lines from the script, so he can't just go off on tangents. And if he can, it's more with his physicality and his gestures. And I kind of like that element of it. And frankly, he's less of a narcissistic man-child in this movie. Like he's a little bit, arrested developmentally, but not in such a way like he's not like Ricky Bobby or Ron Burgundy.
It's a true pleasure seeing him do a film again where they've taken the narcissist part largely out of it.
Yeah,
but he's still very much the Will Ferrell man-child that he's played in all these other films. I mean,
it didn't strike me that way.
It's just the narcissistic part is the part where you get annoyed with them. You're like, I don't care that you have arrested development. What I care about is that you're a complete prick.
Yeah,
and that bugs me. I don't want to see you do that. Here, at least, you're not seeing that. I mean, the worst thing he's probably doing is that he's coveting his brother's fiancée, played by newcomer Genesis Rodriguez, who is just an absolute stunning knockout of a woman. And you see,
ay Dios mío.
The film, like, it's almost like the cameraman was just in love with her and is down on his knees every time he gets a shot of her, just praying at the pedestal that they put her up on.
As were we all.
But it's funny, like, there's this whole like group, like they come from a rich family and they've got all these maids who are I thought they were just as hot as she was.
When they come out, there's like an army of like smoking hot French maids who were Spanish French maids.
Yeah, but like every time they're in the same scene with this actress, they always have this snide face, like, who is this girl? Fuck her.
Yeah,
and that was making me laugh.
Yeah, and a lot of the comedy in this movie, like I really do recommend. It's a very niche movie. It's a super duper niche movie.
Can't get more niche-y than an American film done entirely in Spanish.
And an American film that is paying homage to the Mexican B-movies of the 80s and telenovelas.
Yeah.
Like, even I don't know anything about fucking 80s movies from Mexico.
Yeah, no, it's like, I know about some Mexican films, but they're all like genre-type stuff and like arty-type stuff. Like, I didn't watch anything that this is paying tribute to, so I feel like there are loads of in-jokes that just
there are
right
in-jokes specific to that genre, and then there are just in-jokes about B-movies in general. And those I appreciate. It reminded me a lot of, like, Black Dynamite. Yeah. Where it's like, Black Dynamite is a movie on its own that has a lot of intentional filmmaking errors and filmmaking flubs. This movie kind of went like in Black Dynamite, he might hit his head on a boom mic.
Yeah.
In this movie, they will fucking they'll cut away from a conversation, and when they cut back, it'll be a different person standing next to someone, or they'll have a completely different drink in their hand. And certain moments of the movie, they put fucking mannequins in the background.
Okay, I will say this, that generally speaking, I feel like that is a gimmick that is outstayed its welcome. It's been done too many times by too many people, and I'm just at this point, like, it's just not clever anymore to do that. You're like, you're making it look like a B film, even though it's not. I just don't find that funny anymore. It was when, like, Grindhouse was doing it originally, that sort of thing. That's cute. Now, I'm just bored. But I will say there is one moment in this film, the highlight of this film, that comes about at the beginning of the third reel, where they do that gimmick, but in such a huge way that they're literally printing an apology letter from the director on screen for how badly they fucked it up. That was laugh out loud funny. Yeah. And here and there are moments that it does in fact work more than I would have expected it to, but I feel like they fall back so much on that, on like that as being a gimmick when, like I said, it's just overplayed.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, yes, a lot of it, I completely agree that it's outstayed its welcome. I think a lot of us are through with that shit before we walked in the room, to quote Black Dynamite. But I don't know, like, a lot of it worked for me, and I do kind of, I mean, I still enjoy that stuff to a certain degree, but yeah, like, if they did go a little bit overboard from time to time, but I felt like they had other stuff in the film that balanced it out, like the weird, like, talking tiger that was designed by the Henson Company, which I thought was really cool, and then, like, musical numbers and, like, big shootouts, and fucking Nick Offerman showing up as, like, a douchebag American DEA agent.
Yeah, he was one of the highlights, I thought, in his brief appearances.
Because his Spanish is, like, terrible. And it's funny because when it's subtitled, you almost wish they would subtitle what his Spanish actually says as opposed to what he's trying to say, because it's clear he's not saying it correctly.
Do you speak American?
Huh?
Do you speak American?
No, señor. No habla americano.
Y yo pienso que sí puedes ayudarme. Hago una llamada y 10 helicópteros vienen sobre ese cerro y hacen de tu rancho un pedo encendido.
You know, I guess my problem here ultimately was that I was finding a lot of people, like I said, paying homage to a film tropes that I'm largely unfamiliar with altogether, and clearly being gleeful about it. Just they're obviously all having a great time making this film. I mean, that can be infectious, but I felt like it was a joke I just wasn't in on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm watching most of this film going, okay, I get the jokes, but I just don't see why you think they're so funny.
Let me ask you this. If this was done in short form, like a short film on a website...
Well, if it was done like as one guy pointed out, like a Saturday Night Live sketch, it would have been hysterical. Like, a 10-minute version of this would have been riotously funny.
Yeah.
Just pare it down to its essentials. It would have been super funny.
Well, and the reason I asked that is because... the guy who wrote it, Andrew Steele, is the head of Funny or Die.
Oh, right. Okay.
And Matt Piedmont works for them as well, who directed the movie. And, of course, Funny or Die was started by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay.
Sure.
So this movie was... They're being very careful not to call it a Funny or Die movie because it's really Gary Sanchez Productions. It's Gary Sanchez's movie. But it is the first movie to kind of come out of that collaborative process for the guys of Funny or Die.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like it is going to be one of those things where if you know that going in, you're immediately going to be like, well, this should have been a sketch. And I think in a lot of ways they're right. I think that's an argument with a lot of weight to it. I was entertained by it all the way through, but like I said, it is a super niche movie that is not, and it's like we've said this so many times. Comedy is such a hard thing to review.
It's the most subjective thing there is.
It really
next
is.
to porn.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's super subjective, and I feel like it's one of those movies that it's even hard to recommend to people.
Yeah,
because it really just depends on your particular comedic proclivities, and to me, it worked. Almost everything worked about it. I do see what you're saying with it going a little bit overboard with stuff, but there's some gimmicks in it I haven't seen before that I really like the gimmick where they keep lighting cigarettes. Like, as they're talking, they just keep lighting more and more cigarettes. I was like, I've never seen that movie. That's fucking absurd. But it made me laugh, so I enjoyed it.
Okay, so that falls under the other thing this movie does, which is a thing becoming more common in Will Ferrell movies, and some of his cohorts, too, like Tim and Eric like to do this, where they rely on a joke being funny just because they do something so many times that it inherently isn't funny, but just sheer repetition is supposed to make it funny. And that's a gimmick that most of the time doesn't really work for me. And they don't overdo it here, but even so, they do fall back on it more than I'm comfortable with.
It's like comedy torture.
Comedy torture porn?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. It just keeps... when it happens, I'm like, I get it. But it feels like lazy writing to me whenever anybody does that. Like, we don't have a joke here, so we'll just do this instead. That's not a joke, but repetition always gets a laugh.
That's true.
It doesn't from me.
Yeah, I see what you mean. What the hell are we doing?
I'm trying to prove my point.
Yes, no, point proven. I immediately regret the decision to do this.
I don't know. I wish I could have liked this more. I mean, it seems like it's a good idea. I think it's a ballsy idea.
If nothing else, I think you have to respect that they didn't just make another Anchorman, or they didn't just make another... Even if you still see some of the Will Ferrell tropes in it, they really did try to go completely outside of his wheelhouse and try something completely different. And whether it works or not for you, I respect what they did with it. I respect that they tried it.
I respect they tried it. I don't think I can agree with you that they went totally out of his wheelhouse. I mean, sure, he doesn't speak Spanish, so pretty far outside the wheelhouse in that conceit. But I feel like it fell back on a lot of the same type jokes and humor we see from every other Will Ferrell comedy. I mean, I felt like I was just watching a Will Ferrell movie in a foreign country that someone had dubbed into Spanish, in a lot of ways. Like, yep, I could tell you what all these jokes are without even knowing the language because I recognize so many of them from having seen them before. I don't know. I don't hate that type of humor. I've just gotten bored of it. Yeah. It's like anything else. It's like, hey, I still admire The Simpsons, but I have trouble watching it now because I know how they do things. That gimmick has run itself into the ground for me of their style of humor, where I'm like, let a new generation enjoy it. I feel that way about Will Ferrell. Seen it all. He's not moving on. I have. I didn't feel like this.
Why is this like a bad breakup between you and Will Ferrell?
Hey man, I still admire the guy. He puts a lot of work into his stuff. I don't think he's like
Look, he's doing his thing. I'm doing my thing. We went our separate ways. We're cool. We're friends. It's all good.
We might hook up at some point. I'll suck his dick. Whatever.
There's a frightening amount of homoeroticism in our reviews. I'm just starting to pick up on that.
Is that stressing you out?
It's not stressing me out. It's just interesting to note.
Do you want a massage?
I do. Would you mind? That would be awesome.
Anyway, I can't hate this movie. I don't even dislike it really, but I can't say I really enjoyed it all that much either. The greatest boon here is that it's only 84 minutes.
It's very short.
There are several big laughs along the way. It's just there's so many more that are embarrassing.
And I do want to
bombs.
point out one thing I really, really loved about the movie was that opening song. That opening, it's actually sung by Christina Aguilera, and it's like a Bond song.
No, it was a really neat opening sequence.
It's like if they had, in the sequence is very Bond-like. It's almost like if they had a Mexican James Bond, this is how the movie would open, and it's fucking rad. I love that.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a neat idea anyway, although the problem is if anybody ran with that, it's going to be Robert Rodriguez, and God damn it.
Yeah, we don't need that.
We don't want or need that. What do you end up giving this film?
Actually, just because of, like, even though I did like it, just because of how niche it is, I really do think that the responsible thing is to give it a rental. Because it's like, this is a movie you need to see and decide whether you're into, and it's dangerous to spend money to do that in a theater. I feel like you're gambling less to see it at home and decide whether or not this kind of humor is for you.
Yeah, wow, that's weird. I was expecting to argue with you on this, but I agree with you completely. It is a rental. Mm-hmm. There are good things about it, but there's a lot that I found just dull. You might be mad at me if you end up seeing this at home and then go, God damn it, this would have been hysterical in the theater. Well, the odds are you would have been the only one in the theater, so it probably would have been. That's
the kind of unfortunate part is I don't think this movie's going to play well in theaters at all.
I think they're going to have a hard time finding distributors to lap it up. In fact, I think is it out yet, or is it come out this
It's
comes out very shortly.
Yeah, it's due in theaters like on the 6th. Oh shit! Like this Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, I will be shocked if this movie actually turns into a hit, regardless of if it had been really quality or not, because it's just a hard sell. I mean, Americans won't go see anything if it's subtitled, generally speaking.
I think they made this movie just because they got tired of frat boy douchebags quoting Will Ferrell movies.
Huh.
So they're like, well, you can do it, but you're going to have to learn another language now, so fucking educate yourselves, assholes.
That's really smart.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I think that might have been the plan from day one.
They should have made Project X in Spanish, and that way frat boys wouldn't have gone out and burned down their neighborhoods.
That would have been better, because you know what? Even if they had, I would have been like, well, at least you learned another language. So if nothing else, the Rosetta Stone got a few dollars from you, so that's awesome.
Casa de mi Padre in color.